All right, folks, buckle up because tonight we're diving into the wild world of privatization. In the simplest terms, privatization is like your grandma giving her prize-winning apple pie recipe to Nestle. It's when a government decides, you know what, we really shouldn't be running this thing, so they sell it off to a private company. Think everything from your water supply to your local prison. Now, you might be thinking, what's the big deal? Well, my friends, it's a bit more complicated than your grandma trusting Nestle with her secret ingredient. When we're talking about essential services like healthcare, education, or God forbid, the postal service, things get a little hairy. Proponents argue that private companies are more efficient, innovative, and less bogged down by bureaucracy. Think about it. Have you ever been truly excited about going to the DMV? Yeah, didn't think so. But critics, and trust me, there are many, warn that profit-driven corporations will prioritize shareholder dividends over public good. So the next time you hear the word privatization, don't just tune it out. It's not just some boring economic jargon. It's about who controls the things we rely on every single day and whether they're looking out for our best interests or their bottom line. And spoiler alert, it's usually the latter. Okay, so we've established that privatization isn't just your grandma's apple pie recipe. It's happening on a massive scale, with corporations gobbling up public assets like they're going out of style. We're talking water systems in Bolivia, healthcare in the UK, even freaking prisons in the good old US of take, for example, the water wars in Cochabamba, Bolivia. In the late 90s, the World Bank pressured Bolivia to privatize its water system. A subsidiary of the US multinational Bechtel swooped in, jacked up prices, and even tried to charge people for collecting rainwater. It was absolute chaos, with protests erupting across the country. Eventually, the government was forced to kick Bechtel out and return the water system to public hands. But it's not just developing countries. In the UK, the National Health Service, NHS, a beloved institution that provides free healthcare to all, has been slowly chipped away by privatization. Private companies now run hospitals, provide ambulance services, and even deliver some medical treatments. This has led to concerns about rising costs, unequal access to care, and a decline in the quality of services. These are just a couple of examples of how privatization is playing out on a global scale. From mining in Africa to transportation in Europe, corporations are sinking their teeth into every corner of the world, often with devastating consequences. All right, let's talk winners and losers. When it comes to privatization, it's pretty clear who's raking in the cash, the corporations, of course. They get their hands on valuable public assets, often at bargain basement prices. And guess what? They don't usually have much incentive to keep prices low or maintain quality, especially when there's no competition. But who loses out? Well, it's usually the people who rely on those services the most, the poor, the marginalized, and often entire communities. Remember the water wars in Bolivia? It was the poorest residents who were hit hardest by the price hikes. And when healthcare is privatized, it's often the sick and elderly who struggle to afford the rising costs. This isn't just about economics, it's about basic human rights. When essential services like water, healthcare, and education are treated as commodities, it creates a two-tiered system where those with money can buy their way to the front of the line, while everyone else is left behind. And that, my friends, is a recipe for disaster. So where do we go from here? Is the whole world destined to be bought and sold off to the highest bidder? It's a scary thought, but it's not inevitable. The fight against privatization is happening right now all over the world. From the streets of Cochabamba to the halls of Parliament, people are standing up and saying, enough is enough. They're organizing, protesting, and demanding that their governments prioritize people over profit, and it's working. In some cases, like the water wars in Bolivia, people have been successful in reversing privatization and reclaiming public control over essential services. In other cases, they've been able to push for stronger regulations and accountability measures to prevent the worst abuses of privatized industries. The future of privatization is not yet written. It's up to all of us to decide whether we want to live in a world where everything is for sale, or a world where everyone has access to the basic necessities of life, regardless of their ability to pay. So let's get to work.